Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show one more time. We are going to have a great show. As usual, I tell you guys that all the time, but, I mean that. I mean that we are going to do what is necessary to keep you informed, not by what the mainstream media thinks you need to know, but things that really affect you. And today we have 4 stories that we want to talk about to actually address these particular stories that, again, the mainstream media either never mentions it, either touches on it, but never gives it the intrinsic value that it should have. And I tell you what we have today is a classic example of what is occurring on mainstream media and how that is affecting our body politics as we know it, as those of us who are continuously in it or seeing it. That is the reason why our friends, our families, and others are voting the way that they're voting, or doing the things in the manner that they're doing it. Folks, if you're coming in on, if you're just making it in right now, I have one big ask of you, and that is immediately share this program based on how all these algorithms work on Facebook, on Google, and elsewhere. We need you to show immediate interest in this so that others can see it percolating up the ante and go ahead and start seeing it within their feed. So if you are watching right this minute, the first thing I'd ask you to do, and then we're going to get into the show, is to immediately share this program. That way we tell the Google and rather the Facebook algorithm and others on Blog Talk Radio. We don't have that issue since they have their own methods of pushing the stories. But specifically on Facebook, to get it pushed there, we need you to share immediately. We have some great topics to talk about today, and we are going to talk about these topics because they are important. They make a material difference. If not to you directly, they make a material difference to your family, your friends, your fellow folks in your states, your city, your towns, your counties, your country. So please, again, remember, share. This is a call-in show. Remember that, please. This is your show, to put it bluntly. You have the ability to give us a part of what you want on air. You have the ability to tell us what you want to hear. By the way, this program on the Politics Done Right daily, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Fridays, or on networks, several networks, including Facebook Live, as well as Blog Talk Radio. The Thursday program appears on air as well on the Pacifica network station. So please do remember, share. This is going to be some of the things that we're going to talk about today. Is going to, what I like to say, blow your mind. But I want to take this first opportunity here to get a bit personal. Today, Alston, what's his name? The guy who got killed in Baton Rouge. Now, I had a little brain freeze here, but they came back and said, as most people expected them to do, that there will be no charges filed against. I mean, this is simply hard to believe, right? What will it actually take? What will it actually take for an injustice to get punished when it involves a police officer and a person of color? For all of those that are white that are listening to me, I wish you would learn to empathize with the severity of what is occurring in this country with police officers and black men and of people of color. And I'm going to get into the show in a minute, but I'm taking this personal moment because this also has an effect on me, not my psyche, on me and on many others, and it is real. What we ask of those who have the ability to do so is to empathize and try to put yourself in the shop. Not even a video camera. For most of these incidents where it is clear that a police officer overreacted and took less serious the life of a person of color, it requires the citizenry in general to start developing some empathy to what is occurring. Here's the thing. Police officers are nothing more than the reflection of our society. And as a reflection of our society, it isn't something that looks very good. Donald Trump's election is nothing more than a reflection of society. To see that over 50% of my white brothers and sisters voted for a man of that caliber, to see that several of my white brothers and sisters look at the same video that I see and don't see that, irrespective of that person mouthing off of a cop, the punishment given, death, was unwarranted. When every other person, meaning every other white person, do these things without having the fear in general. I'm not saying it never happens. It happened a few times, and when it happened to white people where a police officer killed them, I reported that as well. I blogged about that as well. So this is not on my part a racial issue. It is a racial issue on the part of others towards those that are affected by this issue. I know it's hard for a lot of people to take. And while you're listening, please share. I don't care who you are. Share. These are things we really have to come to terms with. We have to come to terms. Nobody expected, let me be frank, those Baton Rouge officers to face down. But it still hurts when you have video that shows the disregard that these officers had for the life of a black man. It still hurts when the official thing comes down that says these guys can use their weapons indiscriminately and walk. And it happened over and over again. And you think about this. My young black nephew a few months ago told my sisters, Ma, when he got his driver's license, asked her, how do I stay safe? And she tells him the same thing I told my daughter about being around cops and having no reaction. But the other thing is something that I wrote about a few days ago, where I said the one thing for people of color that people of color should do in immediacy in this country is avoid the criminal justice system, is avoid the justice system altogether. Be as invisible as you can to the justice system in this country. Be as invisible until we can change the psyche of every single or the vast majority of Americans, people of color. As far as the justice system is concerned, you must be invisible. You must be invisible, and that sounds terrible, where justice should be blind. But you must be invisible. And for those of us who are proud, just like any other American that's proud, and think when your rights are being taken away, you have the right to fight for it. Yes, you do, but only in groups, and only when you have the safety, to put it bluntly, of your white allies. That's what we did when we shut down the freeways in Missouri, in St. Louis. We had those brave white allies come up with us and march on those bridges. And when the cops came, they rotated in the front, and you watched the cops move off. I hate to put it in these terms when it comes to cops, and you guys know, politics done right, Egberto Willies, I am a very non-racial person when it comes to issues. But folks, they are killing black men. They are killing Latino men. They are killing people of color, and with no recourse. Sacramento, that just happened again. And body cams turned off. Right now, it is occurring to those people they consider of least value. But eventually that could be you. Empathy is required at this point in time. Empathy is required. Sorry for this diversion, my dear friends. Again, you know, if it's coming from myself on an issue like this, and you know my politics, and you know what I talk about, and you know how I handle the racial issue, you know this is real. Like I tell all my folks, I stay away personally. I'm an engineer, I'm a businessman, I'm a political activist, I'm educated, I have an advanced degree, all these things. When I am in my car and when I'm going around the city, I consider myself nothing but an expendable black man in the eyes of our justice system. And for all of those who know me, all my good white friends or whatever, you probably never heard me say that. Well, I've said that to a few of you. But this is who or what America is today. It's sad, but this is what America is today. I am done with the soapbox on this issue, and forward we move. Folks, please go ahead and share this program. It is of utmost importance. We have some good topics to talk about. Likewise, I want to remember, after sharing this program, one important issue. Please remember, this is a progressive show. We bring progressive politicians, we bring progressive issues, and we intend to tell the truth, unlike what a lot of what's going to happen on mainstream media. And we're going to touch on subjects that the mainstream media cannot touch because it's not in their best interest. And I do understand it, that if they're funded by the plutocracy, if they're funded by those people who advertise the drugs, those people who advertise oil, those people who advertise all these other things, that they can't say anything to these guys if these particular people are misusing the goodwill of corporate personhood. So, we're going to have a good show. Please do remember, this is an adventure that needs your support. So, on the screen, you'll see that little address, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Please go ahead and support these types of programs. You are essential in ensuring that we can continue doing what we're doing. And I mean that. You are essential in continue doing what we're doing here. Anyway, the title of the show today is Independent Media's Only Option to Get Past Trump Distractions. In other words, we're your only hope to get past Trump's distraction. I turned on the TV and everything right now, even as I watch CNN on the big screen out there, is still about Stormy Daniels. And what else is there about? Stormy Daniels and Russia, Stormy Daniels and Russia, Stormy Daniels and Russia. And you know what? Neither one of those things are going to help pay your kids' tuition. Neither of those things are going to fix the student loans that your kids are going to amass, which will prevent them from advancing in the future. Neither of those things are going to fix the healthcare debacle that is going to be occurring in October when you get your new bill in October. None of that is going to solve that. And there are things that are being done right now to ensure that in October you're going to be screwed. But is the media forward looking to tell you that? Well, we are telling you that now. There are things being done right now that is going to ensure that your healthcare bill next year is even higher than the higher it would have been. And you know who's telling you that? Are those guys telling you that? They're not. We are. Please be kind. Give us a coffee a month. Give us $1 a month. Give us whatever. Patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Keep us, TYT. What I always tell folks as well, very important, I do the same. Daily Coast, Op-Ed News, Democratic Underground, CoffeePartyUSA.com, and of course I give to HCDP. So, I mean, we all must do our part to please keep us on air. And do remember, this is a call-in show. The call-in show's number is right there, 646-716-5812. Okay, we should all be tired of the mainstream media recurring real. Russia, Stormy Daniels. Russia, Stormy Daniels, ad nauseam. If there is any doubt Americans are tired of it, one need just note that Donald Trump's poll numbers have not only stabilized, but guess what? Donald Trump's numbers are up. Does that sound like something that would happen if real reporting was telling Americans the damage the Trump administration is inflicting on American people? Absolutely not. I can answer that question. The mainstream media is continuing its modus operandi. They are all parakeets, parrots, regurgitating the same news over and over again. It is on us. It is on us. You want your friends to know the truth? We have to be the ones telling them the truth. We have to be one telling them resources where they can get the truth. We have to be the ones who are going to solve the problem. We can't wait for the other person. We can't wait for somebody else to do the job for us. We have to do it ourselves. I'm sorry. That's just the truth. We have to do it ourselves. So, to be sure, the independent media, to the best, will do our best to solve that paradigm. Let me repeat that. They're all parakeets, parrots, regurgitating the same news over and over again. It is on us, the independent media, to do our best to change the paradigm. To be sure, I personally use a lot of today's news, and I want to tell you folks something, because somebody told me something the other day. They said, Egberto, you always talk about the mainstream media regurgitating that news and the other news and so forth, but I look at your blog, and I see you talk about Stormy Davis, and I see you talk about Trump doing this and Trump doing that, same thing that's on the mainstream media. And I said, yes, read the blog, though. You see, our mainstream media has programmed many people to look at those keywords, those particular titles to get in. But then I say afterwards, look at the payload. After we use those, after we bring the people in with those news stories, we tell them further, either on the news stories, why, how, what, how it affects them independently, and then we bring in other subjects. Because a lot of times we have been so deprogrammed for a short sense of, we've been programmed to have a very short attention span. And the truth of the matter is, I am not going to sit back and write something that isn't going to be read, even as I am trying to promote us thinking. I am not going to sit back and simply be on a high horse and say, well, if they don't read what they need to read, it's on them. No, it's on me. It is my responsibility as an independent blogger, as an independent journalist, as someone who has promised to give the truth, as someone who has promised to enlighten, to do whatever I need in however form I must do it to get to you. So that is the answer for the folks who had that particular question or that particular statement. But folks, I know you know what time of the program it is, and that is where we're heading.
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, it's time for that good old weekly blog post. And the title of the blog post is Mainstream Media Getting Played by Republicans Through Trump Distractions. I want to repeat that title again. Mainstream Media Getting Played by Republicans Through Trump Distractions. And here it goes. Alert! Alert! The polls have some pausing results for progressives that prove something we must discuss. Look, I love Chris Hayes, Rachel Maddow, and Lawrence O'Donnell's lineup, as they're usually the closest we can get in an in-your-face pushback against the plutocracy by the traditional mainstream media. So it's very hard. It's hard. It's hard for these guys to do what they're doing. I understand that. Whether it's CNN, even Fox News, is hard. They have a particular constituency that depend on a particular group of advertisers that they must please. I understand that. And that's why you have to have folks that are doing it independently. Last night, though, I had it and had to turn it off to meditate to some Daniel Caesar. Have you ever heard of that Canadian singer Daniel Caesar? My daughter laughed at me when I told her I found this guy. Apparently she's been listening to him for some time, but I love his music, I love his tonality, etc. But here's why. Here is why I went bat you-know-what crazy last night. Last night, MSNBC's lineup concentrated almost entirely on Trump distractions. Sadly, the mainstream media leaves too much that affect everyday Americans wholly uncovered or marginally covered. while the mainstream media continue to hyperventilate about Trump's Russia and Stormy Daniels problems, it is immediately evident Americans are concerned about other issues. The media is, in fact, acting like a bunch of elitists. Oh my God, I used that word. The media is acting like a bunch of elitists. Yes, they're acting like a bunch of elitists. And what do I mean by the media is acting like a bunch of elitists? Those in the mainstream media have nothing in common with everyday Americans. You see, they are intrigued by a president who is likely a traitor, one who treats women like crap, one who pay them for their silence and many other harmful things. Enough Americans voted for this man to make him president. Not the majority, but enough. Not the majority, but enough. They were acutely aware of his shortcomings, but they had so much more disdain for the system as they saw it that he got in. I know, folks, before I continue, some of you are going to say, but there was Russia. And Russia went into the system and Russia played with people's minds, etc., etc., etc. Look, if you have a good thing happening to you, it doesn't matter if, for the most part, and you're level-headed, and I think most Americans are good, well, and level-headed, as the vote really showed, just in the wrong places. They wouldn't be so easily swayed by the type of misinformation provided by the Russians, etc., etc., etc. So they were acutely aware of his shortcomings, those people were. But they had so much more disdain for the system as they saw it that he got in, instead of the mainstream media trying to overcompensate for their failures of the past that assisted in electing Donald Trump. One would expect them to report on the issues that are materially affecting Americans. That is what they should be reporting about. A recent CNN poll is probative. Donald Trump, with all his problems reported meticulously by the mainstream media, is up 6 points from last month. Wow. Trump is even net positive on his handling of the economy. Does anyone remember the phrase, "It's the economy, stupid"? This poll is a clear message from many Americans. They do not care about his shenanigans relative to all that is wrong that affect them. Russia, Stormy Daniels, money laundering, and payoffs are all real issues that should bring down his presidency. But it is a slow legal process. His presidency could still fall on its face. But in the process, there are Americans. In the process, there are Americans who need help. In the process, there are Americans who are suffering. In the process, there are Americans who say, but wait, so what if he goes down? So what happens? I am still starving. I am still needing a job. I am still needing better pay because, we're at full employment. We're at full employment just with lousy wages. But hey, we're at full employment, man. Just lousy wages. Even as all the other guys make a whole ton of money on your back because that's the way our system works. They do not care about his shenanigans relative to all that is wrong that affect them in Russia, Stormy Daniels, money laundering and payoffs, etc. But it is a slow legal process. Americans need to know what is occurring elsewhere that materially affects them. It is more evident than not why it is imperative that we have a strong independent media. So, while the mainstream media continues to hyperventilate on issues that don't directly affect our citizens, let's talk about a few issues that do. Protect Our Care. Protect Our Care is a nonprofit out there that is really keeping its eye on healthcare reform right now. And I want to give you some news that they had mentioned in their last blast that a lot of people probably are not getting, but here it is. At the annual National Association of Insurance Commissioners meeting, Trump administration officials told insurers that they will not make a decision on their proposed junk plan rule until this fall, right before open enrollment begins. Axios noted that would give insurers very little time to adjust their premiums to account for the finalized regulations, which would probably make them more likely to err on the side of caution and seek bigger initial increases. In response, Protect Our Care campaign chair Leslie Dash released the following statements. Middle-class consumers are already bracing for higher rates next year as a result of the Trump tax bill and ongoing Trump administration sabotage. After sabotaging their own half-hearted attempt at so-called stabilization bill, Republicans in Congress have nobody to blame but themselves for the rate hikes that insurance companies are now predicting. If they truly want to contain the damage and protect consumers, they should call on the Trump administration to immediately rescind the junk plan rule that would once again allow discrimination against people with pre-existing conditions and also force rate increases for real insurance. It's important to remember that it didn't have to be this way. Before President Trump took office, rates were leveling out and some insurance companies were planning to offer lower premiums. But instead, Trump led congressional Republicans into an all-out war on our health care, and now they have failed to repeal the Affordable Care Act. They seem to have decided to just keep digging. Junk plans is the name of the game. And let me tell you something that this article didn't tell you that you must infer as well. Here's the problem. There's a good chance that these guys are going to start effecting, allowing what used to happen in the past through regulations, and that is allow you to be sold junk plans. And it's going to be cheap relatively to the insurance on the market. But that's not enough. That's not what Trump is doing. Trump is a little bit more devious than that. You notice what the article says? The article says that Trump is waiting to determine whether he will allow insurance companies to sell junk plans that say, okay, we won't allow hospitalization, or we will cover you, but we won't cover that spine. We'll cover you, but we won't cover your kidney. We'll cover you, but we won't cover you that potential cancer bump that you have on your cheek. You know, junk policies that don't cover much, policies that you don't know is lousy until you try to use it. Those are coming back. But Trump wants you to believe, not you, Trump is allowing the companies to believe that maybe we won't have it. And what does that do? That makes the regular affordable care insurance skyrocket even higher than it was going to go. And because that has skyrocketed, now comes the junk insurance plans to the market. When the junk insurance plans come to the market, more people buy the junk because they have caused the insurance to skyrocket by so much, the affordable care insurance to skyrocket by so much. The only alternative people see is the junk. And then the junk doesn't have to be as cheap as it was going to be because they have the stopgap to the top that is that much more expensive. Don't you love it? Don't you see how the same people that depended on the Affordable Care Act, like those people in Kentucky who supported that great man Donald Trump, those people in Kentucky who love Donald Trump, he's gonna make your Connect Care so high that you're required to buy junk. Connect Care is of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare in Kentucky, and the people in Kentucky, when polled, they hate Obamacare, but they love Connect Care. Wow, same thing, right? That is what we're talking about. And you know, this is a very important issue, right? Because it's going to kill a lot of people. But when last did you hear this on the mainstream news? When last, for those of you that are listening to me that own your own company, you have to start preparing for some alternative, maybe starting to look for medical co-ops or whatever, where you can prepay bills and that sort of thing. Because the insurance rates that are coming in October are going to be scary. And we cannot, and by the way, it is time now for progressives and progressive politicians listening to the show now. It is imperative on you yourself to start putting this message out. And I don't hear a lot of you talking about it. Yes, Americans believe healthcare is one of the most important issues here, but I don't hear the progressive politicians hitting it hard. Come on, you got to hit it much harder, my friends, because I tell you what, you have to inoculate yourself from the barrage that's going to be coming from Trump and the Koch brothers that are going to say, hey, the insurance rate that you're going to see in October is going to be because Obamacare is broken. They're getting ready for that message. You have to preempt that by giving them the truth about what's happening now. And because it's not on network TV, doesn't mean you can't be out there talking about it. Doesn't mean that you cannot be out there informing the people, your constituents. And if every progressive in every district in America does that, we don't need the mainstream media because you're already campaigning. You are the media putting it out there and getting it in every single local paper. In the case of Kingwood, the Kingwood Observer, the Kingwood Tribune, all those places should have this information to keep these people abreast of what's going on. So that is the first story I wanted to talk about. Second story, out of Daily Kos. All you had to do to understand the Trump administration's different responses to Hurricane Harvey, which hit Houston, Texas late last summer, and Hurricane Maria, which hit Puerto Rico, was read Donald Trump's Twitter feed, or listen to him talking, or time how long it took him to visit the disaster-struck areas. FEMA claims that it did everything it could for Puerto Rico, and that the circumstances were just different and there wasn't favoritism. Yeah, right. The circumstances were that Puerto Rico's needs were greater and its resources were less put its political clout, especially with a Republican administration, that especially with a president who's made Latino bashing his stock in trade and may or may not realize that Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens, was also less. It was criminal neglect, and the evidence is everywhere. Why did I bring that story in as one of the stories that I say should be much more covered? These people are suffering. Your fellow Americans in Puerto Rico, the place where a lot of your drugs used to be made, and some are still, many of them are still made, are suffering. Fellow Americans suffering. And we're treating them not even as if they are third-class citizens. We're treating them as if they're not Americans. We're treating them as if we don't care. And that is a problem. Who speaks for those who can't speak for themselves? You do. Who is the one who is responsible to be their brothers and sisters' keeper? You are. And if you don't know what is happening with them, how can you? And that is what we're talking about. Yes, every now and then they say, oh, Puerto Ricans have been without electricity for 6 months. Okay, next subject. Where is the in-depth coverage as to why are our Puerto Rican brothers and sisters without electricity for 6 months? Think about Houston, my town. What would happen if we had that occur in Houston with 6 months of no electrical grid coverage? Now, let me be clear. Similar events has happened in sections of Houston for the same reason, for people that are considered less than. In fact, my town, which is a pretty interesting area in Texas, it got all the coverage and it got all the resources were there to be had. And about 15 miles down the road, I went to a church to do some helping out, and those people hadn't even seen a truck until some of the churches in the area got together and just started to truck supplies in to help these folks out weeks after the event had occurred, and some of their homes were still not all the mold and stuff had still not gotten out of the homes. People were just left desolate. So these are issues again that if most Americans don't know, most Americans can do nothing about it, and it takes away from the goodwill that is within the hearts of the vast majority of Americans. It's within the heart of the vast majority of Americans. Okay, third story. From the Electronic Frontier Foundation. And this one, folks, all of you on Facebook, Google, everywhere, this one is extremely important. And it went through the clouds of the night. But it affects you. It affects every single American. It has an impact on you. And here it goes. In the final pages of the bill, meant only to appropriate future government spending, lawmakers snuck in a separate piece of legislation that made no mention of funds, salaries, or budget cuts. Instead, this final tacked on a piece of legislation will erode privacy protections around the globe. This bill, called the Cloud Act, it was never reviewed or marked up by any committee in either the House or the Senate. It never received a hearing. It was robbed of a standalone floor vote because congressional leadership decided behind closed doors to attach this unvetted, unrelated data bill to the $1.3 trillion government spending bill. Congress has a professional responsibility to listen to the American people's concern, to prevent their constituents, and to debate the merits and concerns of this proposal amongst themselves. And this week, they failed. On Thursday, the House approved the omnibus government spending bill with the Cloud Act attached in a 256 to 167 vote. The Senate followed up late that night with a 65 to 32 vote in favor. All the bill requires now is a president's signature. Make no mistake, you spoke up. You emailed your representatives. You told them to protect privacy and to reject the Cloud Act, including any efforts to attach it to must-pass spending bills. You did your part. It is a congressional leadership negotiating behind closed doors who failed. This is more serious than you think. Much more serious than you think. Because what it means is, at first, there are times when we had the Telecommunication Act where the people could say, okay, we could only intercept calls that are coming from overseas, and the only way you could get entangled in the government spying on you, well, is just if you happen to be talking to somebody, some foreign entity that we think is suspect. And then you'll get tied into it, but still you're protected. Gone, technically speaking, because everything occurs in the cloud. Even your phone calls occur in the cloud. And these guys now have all access to this data without requiring, as I recall within the bill, warrants or anything else. They just have access to the cloud. But guess what? They don't only have access to it in the United States of America. They could easily go ahead and say, Great Britain, we know your cloud, this passed through your cloud, let me have it. Or any other country that decides to be a part of this consortium of simply looking at cloud data out there. Let me just forewarn you, right? So that is the thing. I mean, look, those of us that are activists know that there are solutions. There are a lot of solutions out there where we have end-to-end encryption that it doesn't matter that the data is in the cloud. Because it's encrypted in the cloud very well, it is even hard for the government to get access to that data. I could name you a whole lot of tools that you could use right now to protect you. We use them here in the activist community. We can, if anybody wants any specific suggestions, you can get to me offline, and I'll be more than happy to give you the suggestions as far as the tools political activists use to keep their conversations 99.99999% safe from prying eyes, whether it's a government or the plutocracy. Because don't ever think that your government is spying on you because the government, the big state, want to have you. Anytime your government is spying on you, it's because the plutocracy tells them to spy on you. And what I mean by that is the government keeps and wants all this information, not because it is big government. It's because it is a portion of the government working not for you, but working for those folks who own them. We can go into that at some other time, but that is basically how it is, my dear friends. So anyway, there are ways to protect yourself. Look, I put a whole ton of stuff into the cloud. All my shows, all the writings that I do are in the cloud. I don't care. I don't care if the government sees it. I don't care if the plutocracy sees it. I don't care who sees it. But when we are talking about communications, I really, really want private. I have tools that I use that is exactly what it's for, private communication that really, really works. And not even the government can get in because it is point to point, right? What I mean by point to point, I mean it's on your unit where the encryption begins, and the encryption is absolved on the unit on the other side. And the cloud is just a transport thing, like passing dirty water or something like that. And the government can go and try to take the pieces out of the dirty water, and it'll have a hard time doing that. And and they know that as well. But what they have to assume is that most people aren't going to go there or go through that trouble. Anyhow, the last subject that I want to talk about is out of Op-Ed News by Chris Hedges. And it goes as follows. Give a necessary analysis on, he decided to give an analysis on the gig economy. And I got a little excerpt out of the little thing that he wrote that is very, very important. And listen to this. I want you to really listen to it. Because I tell you what, even myself, I have considered doing some work in the gig economy to supplement, now that I'm a full-time political activist and not writing software for my own company anymore and selling my own software anymore, doing part of the gig economy. In fact, I've even considered, hey, maybe I'll do some Uber, maybe I'll do some Lyft, maybe I'll do something, because, again, activism doesn't pay well. But here's the thing, and by the way, anyway, let's go on to what Chris Hedges had to say. A 65-year-old New York City cab driver from Queens, Nicanor Ochisor, hanged himself in his garage March 16, saying in a note he left behind that the ride-hailing companies Uber and Lyft had made it impossible for him to make a living. It was the fourth suicide by a cab driver in New York in the last 4 months, included on February 5th, in which livery driver Douglas Schiffer, 61, killed himself with a shotgun outside City Hall. Due to huge numbers of cars available with desperate drivers trying to feed their families, wrote Schiffer, they squeeze rates to below operating costs and force professionals like me out of business. They count their money and we are driven down into the streets we drive, becoming homeless and hungry. I will not be a slave working for a chump or working for chump change. I would rather be dead. He said he had been working 100 to 120 hours a week for the past 14 years. Shifter and Ochisor were two of the millions of victims of the new economy. Corporate capitalism is establishing a neo-feudal serfdom in numerous occupations, a condition in which there are no labor laws, no minimum wage, no benefits, no job security, and no regulations. Desperate and impoverished workers forced to endure 16-hour days are viciously pitted against each other. Uber drivers make about $13.25 an hour. In cities like Detroit, this falls to $8.77. Travis Kalanick, the former CEO of Uber and one of the founders, has a net worth of $4.8 billion. Logan Green, the CEO of Lyft, has a net worth of $300 million. Look, let me first close out the blog of the week, then I'll talk about this, and then I'll go to the Facebook page. These are four different kinds of stories that either affect us all or affect a large number of our fellow citizens. These cable network are 24-hour networks that have capacity on the airwaves to do real news. Their dereliction of duty is reflected in our dysfunctional body politic. You see, these folks could be telling all these stories on cable news, right? Now, there are independent media, there are independent folks, and some of this is mentioned even in standard print media. And guys like myself, bloggers and all, aggregate it into a usable form. What we mean by that is we put it together into a form that you consume from several other sources, right? In other words, we have a good blogger that puts out a great piece out there on a research he's done, another writer from the Washington Post that puts out another great piece, another person from the New York Times put out a great piece. But in the aggregate, each of those publications don't do justice to what's going on in the country. And we have the bloggers and we have the guys like ourselves who come and have these programs, try to put them together to tell a story. And that story that I'm trying to tell today is how the lack of this information being aggregated appropriately where would be great. Let's say on cable news where they have many hours to fill, would educate folks so that they see things in a manner that makes them understand that they are being screwed. These four stories tell a story. Insurance, the gig economy. We have your rights, your privacy rights and how you communicate. And lastly, but not least, you learn about how these guys are attempting to disregard certain sections of your country, our country. And these are stories. And, these stories can all be stitched together and tell a bigger story. One that says, we don't care. We only want to do what is necessary to move a select few forward. Folks, that telephone number, let me put it up on the screen, is 646 715-5812. 646-716-5812. 646-716-5812. And I'm going to go to our good old Facebook page right now and talk to you. I hope some calls come in. You guys have been stingy with your calls. I don't know. Maybe it's just that you like to write your things down on the post. But anyway, let's go ahead and get to that. It's coming up right now that I'll be able to talk to you on that. Let's start from the folks who started. Let's see. Come on. Okay, let's see. All right, we have Michael Redden, Theron Kenneth Cal, you're a funny guy. Okay, I guess I didn't get that from the beginning, so I don't know. Drivers are making less than minimum wage. Being squeezed is an understatement. Yes, that's what I understand, and from even friends that are doing it. Michael, you can't take the truth seriously, or oh well, I won't go ahead and do that. All right, Michael Rudd and Theron Kenneth Cal. Sometimes I wonder if you even bother. Okay, that's a discussion occurring between folks on the thread. Okay, let's see. Cop Block 5 bars. Camera footage should have been made available already prior to the conclusion of the investigation. As it comes to the government, and let me expand that. It seems like he had more to say. Let's see. As it comes to the government, this is from Cop Block 5 Borough of New York. Camera footage should have been made available already prior to the conclusion of the investigation. As it comes to government transparency, they are grossly failed. This will include video and audio from body cameras of BRTP officers, car cameras, video footage, and 911 call and video footage from the store's surveillance cameras. Paul said, "We will make this readily and easily accessible to public after the disciplinary hearings are concluded." We're asking our community for just a little bit more patience. We're always asking the community for patience. Michael Ridden says, yes, over half of white folks voted for Trump, but there is an education disparity. Yes, there is. Daniel Ledo, perhaps you should focus on transforming the black community rather than trying to place the blame on whiteys and cops. Daniel, why don't you expand on that thing and tell me, what do you mean by maybe I should work on, I think Daniel says, perhaps you should focus on transforming the black community. What do you mean by transforming the black community? Do you mean the black community as portrayed on TV that you see on the 6 o'clock news? Because if that is the black community that you are talking about, it is amazing that after listening to my shows for all these years, you haven't realized that what I've told is one of the reasons that you do need diversity in newsroom is because of the stories producers choose to put on TV. I don't blame the average American, the average white American citizen who watch TV news, who watch national news, to look at the representation of black people as a criminal people, as all these types of as a waywardly people, because of what's on TV and what's on movies. Okay, when there is diversity injected, you get a better picture of what a community looks like. And let me tell you, the bad parts of the black community look no different than the bad parts of Appalachia. The good parts of the black community look no different than the good parts of Kingwood, Texas. You want to see other Kingwood, if you are interested in learning about ethnic communities, right here in Houston there are many ethnic communities. And not only are these ethnic communities solely are based solely on minorities being depressed economically. There are fairly wealthy communities in Atlanta and Houston that are predominantly or highly minority. You should visit them and realize that whenever you look at the behavior of people, it is usually a socio-economic issue. You should learn before you make silly statements, my friend, because it makes you look silly. I can understand other people that haven't listened to shows like Politics Done Right, where they look and they see on TV what a stereotypical black look like. However, expand your horizon and go places, because you would be surprised. All right, your 6 o'clock news looks like exactly the type of producers who makes your 6 o'clock news. Ask yourself a question. Go into a room where they're handing out deferred adjudication and see what that room looks like. I had a friend who was shocked when he went into that room and found out what criminality really looked like in Houston and how offenses were or how penalties were being afforded to that criminality in Houston. Sir, Ledo, read and expose yourself instead of living an insular life that is deprived of reality. It is important that you do that. Now, my audience in general is mostly white, and my audience in general is very informed. So they won't make the mistake that you've made. And you're white. So, education maybe? Continuing, my friends. Continuing. Do you know who kills most black men? Oh, yes, I do know who kills most black men. Guess what? It's black men. Do you know who kills most white men? White men. Oh my God. What a shocker. Again, my friend Daniel Ledo, education is so important to stop a wayward, warped form of thought. Think about it. Continuing, Michael Boone, police kills over 1,000 per year with a racial disparity in the shooting rates. And yes, you're right, Rudin. I've read that before. Yep, you're correct. This is disgusting. So what's Trump done now? Okay, Rob Sargent, it's odd how no one addressed the fact our government cuts police budgets, causing understaffed and poorly trained police officers forces across America. When are we going to learn it is not black versus white? It is 1% like Trump. Rob Sargent, why don't you give a schooling to Mr. Ledo? Love you, brother. You got it exactly right. Let's see. Michael Redden said, you are right that the people who don't really care about Stormy Daniels or Russia, which have dominated the mainstream media. Okay, let's see. What else here? Sam Lafferty, we do care about Russia and Stormy, just not so much that no other news seems to get reported. That is what I'm trying to say. That is what I'm trying to get, Sam Lafferty. That is what I'm saying. Facts and a little editorial speculation are fine, just not beating it to death 24/7. Brother Lafferty, you hit the nail on the head. That is what we're trying to say. Michael Redwin again. Well, that one is an interaction between somebody else. Let's see what else we have. CZAC. Direct primary care, good cash-only primary care doctors with 24/7 access takes care of 97% of typical health. Look, Mike, I know who you are, Mr. Czak, and I know you're a very conservative guy, but, you know, I don't disagree with what you just said there at all. I mean, there are a lot of things that we can do with primary care that would bring down the cost. There are other things, however, that's built into the system that keep costs up. But, you know, what you're saying there, Mike, is actually pretty darn true. All right. We treat Puerto Rico as, from Michael Redden, we treat Puerto Rico as a disposable colony. You're absolutely right. Michael Redden, oh, that's an internal conversation. Theron, another internal conversation. Another erosion of civil liberty. Michael Redden says another erosion of, I guess this was when I was talking about what they're doing with the Cloud Act. Another, let's see, he says, another erosion of civil liberties in the pages of the bill meant only to appropriate future government spending. Lawmakers snuck in a separate piece of legislation that made no mention of fund salaries. Exactly. This bill is a Cloud Act. You're absolutely right, sir. All right, let's see who else do I need to talk to. Let's see. Jeannie Hoyt, Egberto, your words are so true. Social economic status determines life and health status. Absolutely so, my dear friends. And let's see. Let's go ahead and refresh here to see if we have any more before I go ahead and continue. But, folks, I got some very intelligent commentary from you. But what do I expect? I have mostly intelligent listeners with an open mind. And I hope that you will bring more listeners. I don't care if they're intelligent or not. Just bring more listeners, turn more on to the program so that we can be mutually educated. And I tell you something that is interesting, and a lot of you don't realize, don't believe it when I say it. But I learned a whole lot from my listeners as well, believe it or not. Because a lot of times you guys force me into going and doing some additional research, which I love to do. You know, and then you bring up a point, and if I don't know what that point is, I'm going to go ahead and look those things up. All right, Jeannie just came back again, and Jeannie Hoyt says, MSM reports Stormy type news cause that news won't ever impact their financial bottom line. Very true, Jeannie. Very true. But also, that news is pretty useless when it comes to bringing light to our world. Very true. Very true. Very true. Okay, folks, we have about 4 more minutes. We could take calls if anybody wanted to call in. We have about 4 minutes that we could take some more calls. Let me go ahead and update this other page here and see if we have some information that others want to put in. But give us a call. 646-715-5812. Again, that is 646-715. I keep saying 715. 646-716-5812. Why don't you just give us a call? 646-716-5812. All right. Jeannie Hoyt said, your words are so true. I think I saw that one already. What else is there? That's what for those who told me that I need to get to start reading these things earlier. Sometimes I don't understand exactly how Facebook organized the messages, because sometimes it comes out of order and then sometimes it repeats itself. I am not sure how they decided to fix that up. Okay, let's see. Theron has a message for me. This one is not a fight between two people there. And no egg, Bert. 1G, please. It's not egg as in huevo, not the EG egg that you fry and cook. It's EGBERTO, my friend. It's a Spanish name. And my name is not White. It's Willie's. Have killed 200 million blacks since slavery, lynched 30,000 blacks, and racist cops kill 10,000 unarmed blacks since 1980. So no whites kill way more blacks than blacks. They just don't count those murderers. You know what's interesting? I think Theron Kenneth is from Real Brother. I think that's what your call sign is. And I think you have a radio show too. I think you have a hashtag RB Radio. Even though we differ in the way we think, I'd like folks to go ahead and chime. I have never chimed into your station, but I probably should. People should chime into your show and give you some hell on your show as well when you start talking some of the stuff that you talk to you online. So you hear folks that are listening to Politics Done Right, go into Mr. Theron Kenneth Cal show whenever he's at his RB Radio. Go ahead and put your link telling folks how to get to your show and when into our feed. I like to advertise everybody that's independent media, even if I disagree with it. And I'd like people to call in and give you hell as well. But anyhow, Egberto, what do you think of the NRA did to Killer Mike? Oh, my God. I didn't read the article but I know that Killer Mark is under fire right now for some of the things that he said on their network. I am going to read. I have to admit first that I hadn't read the article, but thank you for giving me that article. I'll read it and I comment on it under where you gave it to me. Welcome aboard, Senor Bruce. Thank you for coming in. I just saw that scroll down somewhere. But yes, anyhow, folks, Brother, what is his name? I always forget his name. Real Brother, I think is what he called himself. Real Brother says something that is important. We give Real Brother a hard time because he sort of sounds like a racist on the other side, right? Like a black racist. I don't think he is. I think he likes a lot of hyperbole. But what he said is something that I think I've written about it several years ago, right? And that specifically is, if you take a look at the fear that cops have for black men or Latino men or whatever, in general, one should see that as an unfounded fear, right? I think if there's any fear, what Real Brother had to say is really true. And that is, the people that are most killed by another race are in fact black men. If one were to do the numbers appropriately and not the numbers in the way they're done for statistical purposes in the country. And when he brought up the amount of black men that were killed or black people that were killed during slavery, etc., I mean, the guy has a point. If the people that needed, it's kind of ironic that the ones who were slaves are the ones to be feared, which they had already proven that they could have been slaves. Not only that, but if you technically speaking, you fear the ones who got their quote-unquote freedom in a peaceful manner via Martin Luther King and his turn the other cheek approach to solving the problem. You wonder, it beats the mind how good advertising is, how good putting out a false message is, that one can say you should fear people who are black when the reality is those people who are black in this country, the majority, I mean, they're killers in every single race. And I don't even think there's not race, but I mean, there's killings in every level of pigmentation. But it is interesting that the pigmentation that is feared the most is the one that has been attacked, killed, and maimed the most. And it speaks to the way you see the news on TV, the way you see these other things that cauterize that in your mind, that you should fear somebody that look more like me than my white brother Bruce that lives next door. When the reality is far from true. So think about that, my dear friends. Think about that. You fear nobody. You fear people you need to fear. And that has little to do with coloration. that has little to do with pigmentation. But it is in the interest of the plutocracy to make pigmentation an issue. Because if we can segment folks in many different forms, race, culture, religion, and all of that, we can make sure they can all not get together and attack the real problem, which is a plutocracy that is extracting everything out of you. Everything out of you. That's what it's doing. So this, that is the reason why in most of my shows, I've always gone non-racial, because I think it's a barrier that doesn't exist, that's put there. And if we make it that barrier, what happens then is that the plutocracy can use that, because you start to have those feelings, he's black, oh, he's white, how he's that. And that creates all these other false issues that were implanted in everybody's brain. You need to fear because of that. You need to fear because of that. You need to fear because of that. And we don't want to go there. We don't want to go there. In the U.S., there is not a national reporting system for police shootings. Sadly, I think there is where black men are being killed the most, often by white men. The Guardian England is trying to track police shootings. Thank you for that information. Great, Theron. Folks, check out the Man's Show. And like I said, give him hell. Folks, we're getting to the end of we are at the end of the program. In fact, I'm in overtime right now. Go ahead and check out Senor RB, my buddy that tries his best to come across as a black racist. try to check out his show and go on and give him hell, because what he wants is a conversation. I can see that. He wants to stir you up and he wants a conversation. So give it to him. And white folks, call his show and give him hell. Because those of you in my show aren't no darn racist. Call him up and give him hell. Give him hell. Look, folks, thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. I want to remind you at the end of these shows all the time that this is Progressive Radio. I want you to go ahead, please, and go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright and help keep Progressive Radio alive, progressive videos alive, progressive vlogging alive. That is how we are going to make a difference. That is how we're going to change minds. When you see that everyday people like yourself can do it, we are going to make a difference. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Thank you so kindly for listening. Please remember to share. We are going to make a difference. For me, it's not about hope. For me, it's about when we make the change. It's not going to take a year. It's not going to take 2 years. It's not going to take 5 years. It's going to take 10 years and beyond. But we have to start somewhere. And we've started, my friends. We've started. Let's keep it rolling. We all promise, those of us in the progressive media, those of us that are out there. And by the way, this isn't just here that we are. We go out there in the fields as well, and we do our job. We do our job because we are going to make this change happen over time. Visit patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Give me a coffee or so a month. My name is Egberto Willies, Politics Done Right, and we are out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.